Welcome on in, everyone, to another episode of Let's Talk Utes. Today we're going to be previewing Utah's opening game of the season versus UCLA at the Rose Bowl. 9 p.m. Mountain Time kick. It's a pretty late kick. Not everyone's happy with that, but it's good to play a conference foe again, I think. Obviously Utah and UCLA, a lot of shared history in the Pac-12. Let's start with kind of UCLA's offense and how we think they'll do against Utah's defense. Landon, what are your initial thoughts on, UCLA's rebuilt offense?
Yeah, first off, I love this matchup, harking back to a Pac-12 After Dark classic. We'll have to see how this goes, but there's so much to cover with UCLA's offense. There's so much new. Last year, their offense was very poor overall. They were one of the worst rushing teams in the entire nation, sub 100 yards per game, which dropped them almost 100 or more spots in pretty much every rush category, like yards per carry, rush yards per game. They were very poor. And so they are replacing a lot of starters on the offensive line. They have 3 new starters coming in. They are Power 4 transfers that have experience, but they're kind of like, they're not the big ticket offensive linemen, I guess.
A lot of them were not starters either at their past location.
Yeah.
Like they're backups, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are bringing back 2 offensive linemen who had okay production for them. Their offensive line numbers weren't great, but the real headliner, of course, is Nico Iamaleava coming from Tennessee. And it's so interesting because he didn't transfer in the spring. It was an extremely late transfer where he's only been with the team for a couple months now. He's not had a lot of time to adjust there. I want to leave some stuff for you guys as well, but one of their main receivers, Caden Robinson, that they were counting on from the portal, he was actually denied eligibility from the NCAA. So there's a lot up in the air with UCLA's offense right now. It's going to be really interesting to see, first off, how quickly can Nico mesh with his new teammates, and then what kind of talent do they have around him?
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating because really it's a complete rebuild. Like they brought almost no one back on offense. The guys up front are new. They're maybe a little bigger than the old guys, but they have a lot less experience. Not sure I trust them. They bring in a running back from Cal who is pretty good. I wouldn't say he's, stand out, but I think he's a good player. Brought in receiver from Cal, Mikey Matthews, few other transfer receivers. Yards each coming in this year, Kwasi Gilmore and Mokiai Ati Malala. So, it's interesting to watch out for them. In addition to bringing Indiana's OC, we saw Indiana have a crazy good offense last year, and it was a lot on the quarterback, Curtis Rourke. I think that they're going to try to implement a lot of the similar stuff to what Indiana did. A lot of RPOs, a lot of quick decisions from the quarterback, accuracy. Honestly, I think it's a pretty good fit for like what Nico brings. So I'm interested to see kind of how that develops.
It's interesting, like a lot of former University of Utah players on the opposite side of the ball. Anthony Woods, we didn't see, obviously, got injured pretty early for Utah last year, so we didn't get to see him at all. But Mikey Matthews, a name that we're probably some people, Utah fans are familiar with his stint with Utah in the gruesome 2023 season. With the quarterback change it with Nate and Bryson Barnes. So probably the big thing with them is the offensive line. Like that is concerning. It's interesting because that's probably where Utah is the weakest is the defensive line, at least on the defensive side of the ball. And we'll see how that goes. Because as a Utah fan, that's one thing that I've always been super confident in is to be able to retool at the defensive tackle, the defensive end position, and having Scally as DC going against maybe a pretty inexperienced offensive line is intriguing. It's kind of perks on my ears a little bit. It's like, ooh, like Scally can do some damage here. We've had some games against UCLA where Utah's really made some quarterback's life living hell. And I think if Utah can pressure Nico, one of those things that's like, we were kind of talking before, it's like, Nico's always struggled really hard, pretty bad when he's getting pressure. Most quarterbacks do, and that's a given. Lennon brought that up to me. He's like, yeah, that's pretty normal. But that's one thing that I've heard a lot about Nico is that he just always struggled with that. I'm intrigued to see like if like UCLA's offense can kind of continue um in the direction that they were the final 6 games of the season. Like according to the Pick Six previews, their first 6 games, they were the 64th out of 60th offense according to his game grader, which is 50th total. And then their final 6 games was 25th out of 68, which is interesting. I mean, that's a 100% increase. Well, I don't know how to math that's up jumping up 25 spots. And so that's an interesting thing. Like, can they continue that? Obviously, a lot of retools is a big question mark. But I mean, they did it last year. They could probably do it again. We're lucky to hit them at the beginning of the season. When it comes to those first 6 games, they were pretty bad offensively.
Yeah, I do agree with everything you're saying, especially getting them early. I do think Tino Sunseri from Indiana is really going to help their offense. I thought their previous offensive coordinator was terrible. But are they going to be able to overcome losing their number 1 and 2 receivers, J. Michael Sturdivant and Logan Loya, as well as their number 1 running back, TJ Harden? And then, I mean, to make matters even worse, losing their number 1 receiving tight end as well, plus those O-line people. It's just UCLA has to hope that, I would say especially the offensive line and receivers, they can't be a big enough weakness that they stop you from being able to run your offense properly. Because I do think there's potential here. Nico, obviously extremely talented, has a great arm. If the offensive line can hold up enough that he has a relatively clean pocket and the receivers are like good enough that they're able to get a bit of separation, you know, make those easy catches, I could see this offense having a pretty decent start. But if either the O-line or the receivers are really underperforming, I think it's going to be very tough for this UCLA team to move the ball.
Yeah, it really is like a house of cards type scenario here for me. Everything kind of has to be working in concert, or I don't think that they're really going to get much going offensively. The big matchup, like Ethan mentioned briefly, was the offensive line versus the defensive line. It's, I won't say weakness on weakness, but it's question on question, you know. Utah, I think we expect to have a good defensive line, but we just haven't seen it. So we can't just pencil that in as much as we want to. You know, there's just a lack of experience there. And UCLA obviously is a huge question mark on the offensive line. How do these guys gel? You know, what is their actual talent level? What are they going to be able to do as a unit? You know, new quarterback, new offense. How does the protection look? How do they pick up blitzes? I think that's going to really decide it there for me. Because if the offensive line is good and they're winning that battle against Utah's defensive line, I think UCLA could have a lot of success here. Like, I don't think it's completely out of the question. I think with Utah's linebackers and DBs, it's still going to be, you know, that's not going to be 50 points on Utah. But I think there's potential for, you know, some scoring there. So I think that's where I'd be looking if I was a UCLA fan, if I was game planning, all starts up front for them.
Yeah, I mean, just breaking down a couple quick stats here. Nico, he did struggle versus teams with a winning record. So in 6 games against teams that ended with winning records, he was 85th in quarterback rating, 88th in yards per attempt, and had 5 TDs through 6 games. You know, some of these teams with winning records he were playing were extremely good, though. So you can't just, you know, write it off, oh, you know, he's like an FCS and G5 team merchant. Like, he's a very solid player, but I'm not certain that he's the type of player that can elevate an entire offense like, you know, he might need to at UCLA.
Well, something that's intriguing is like Tennessee's offensive scheme is so simple. It's like, and then I believe, I can't remember if this isn't a direct quote from him, but it's he said like the offense he's running now is so much more complex. I can't remember the exact quote.
Yeah, I can speak a bit more on that. I listened to like the 45-minute, you know, UCLA preview that the Big Ten put out, and Nico was saying like, oh, I feel like I'm, you know, learning how to play football. Like, I'm learning so many new things. And their offensive coordinator was really talking like, you know, we can't just have Nico out here doing subtraction and addition. Like, he's got to be ready to do calculus on the field. Like, and he was saying our offense goes as Nico goes. Like, it's going to be all on his shoulders to get this done. Like, I don't know. I feel like there could be some negative connotations in that for sure, because, Nico is a second-year player. He got there very late. I don't know. That's a little bit concerning to me.
Yeah, especially bringing in that many transfers. Obviously I'm not qualified to be an offensive coordinator, but I don't think that would be my, system of choice. I
Yeah.
think maybe down the line a few years when you've instilled your culture, but you got to keep it more simple to start. I think Utah saw the huge issues with that, especially last year, when we didn't have Rising, when we didn't have someone with 5 years of experience in the system. Like, it just becomes impossible to run when you only are able to do it with someone who knows it that well. I think that could be interesting.
If there's one person that can do it, Indiana. Look what they did last year. That's concerning. Lannon brought up early in the season with the pods. That's an interesting hire for them. Obviously, he was just co-coordinator, wasn't running the offense.
I think he was an assistant coordinator.
Yeah, but he's probably a mastermind in some of those extremely unique and fun plays that Indiana was running last year and had such a great productive season. So that's something that you can kind of have a concern about if you're a Utah fan. Like, what if this guy was their mastermind? What if here's the Connor Stallion of Indiana for him, bringing up all the...
first time play caller as well. So, we don't know how he's going to respond. What happens? What's his feel for the game? How is he going to do on third down? I think that's tough to do in your first game, to call like that, especially against a Morgan Scally defense on third down.
That's another thing. That is a thing for Utah, man. It's like you have that coordinator advantage. Scally is a premier defensive coordinator in college football. Should be a head coach, truthfully. We are lucky to have this man. And so let's continue to praise him when we can. But if Scally can produce some pressure, and I think that's the big thing that he's brought up a lot this offseason, is producing more turnovers. That was something that we lacked desperately last year. And this is the game to do that. With a team that's probably hasn't meshed super well quite yet, very early in the season, with a new quarterback, a new OC, new offense, this new stacked on each other. This is the time to really put that foot on the gas and make things happen. And I'm excited to see, with the experience we have in the secondary and in the linebacker room, especially, how much disruption we can create. Guys like John O'Hall, Teo Johnson, Smith Snowden, the list goes on forever. They have so much athleticism and talent that I think these guys can really make UCLA's offense struggle. If we can have these guys do what they're capable of this in week one, I think this is going to be a fun game for Utah fans.
Yeah, super quickly, one more thing on UCLA's offense before we transfer over to Utah's defense, but getting into the rumor mill per se, UCLA reporters say that they saw UCLA's top 3 receivers on a different field rehabbing, looking like they might be suffering from some injuries. And right after that, Deshaun Foster actually closed the practices, which kind of lends a bit of credence to oh man, maybe that's something that he actually didn't want people to see. So that's something to keep your eye on. Could be absolutely nothing, but at the same time, if 1 or 2 of them don't play, that could be the reason for it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge area where Utah has an advantage, honestly, because I think Utah's secondary is one of the best in the country. I think it's better than last year's. I think Scooby Davis is that dude. I think, Smith Snowden is that guy. These guys are good. I kind of think that, especially if there's, injuries or guys are banged up, not playing at 100%, it's going to be tough to get completions, I think. I think that this DB is really locked down.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at a stat recently. I don't know if you guys realize this, but Utah was second best in the entire country for completion percentage allowed. It was only at 54% completion percentage against Utah's DBs. And from Morgan Scally himself, Utah's defensive coordinator, he came out and said, I feel better about this group of DBs than last year even. So a ton to look forward to there. I think that Nico's job is going to be very, very tough against these defensive backs. We have some really athletic guys. We kind of have guys that can match up with any type of receiver, and I think they're very flexible. We have someone like Teo Johnson back at safety, which I am super excited for. Very lengthy, very fast, great instinct for the ball. There's a lot to look forward to with Utah secondary.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Any other thoughts on, Utah's defense versus UCLA's offense here?
Dude, I'm just getting started. What do you mean? Any
Let's
other
go,
thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, keep going.
Well,
Keep going. I want them all.
Going on, I think the one matchup to look at that's going to be super interesting is the Utah pass rush versus the UCLA offensive line. Having guys like Logan Fano, Fitzgerald, even younger guys, Jackson Jones, John Henry Daly, Lance Holtzclaw. Scally said we have a super deep, defensive end room. And so I'm really interested to see because, no matter how good a quarterback's playing, if they only have a second in the pocket, it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're getting pressured every single throw, it's going to be really hard to get completions. So that's a storyline, a matchup to look out for.
Well, and we, as Utah fans, we saw all last year. If they can't run the ball, and Utah can just stack that box, create. They can't run the ball, and they're gonna have to push this. Like Utah's gonna be able to allow so many different schemes and so many different personnel on the field, where it's gonna really affect how fluid this offense can be. I mean, Glenn hit on the head with the defensive ends, but I want to talk about the linebackers as well. The experience we have with the Mooney, Lander, John O'Hall, and we have some younger guys that I think can really make some noise with some rotations, with some athleticism, with some different type of schemes that Scally's bound to cook up. It's one of these years. It's like this could be special. I'm not saying it's anywhere near the 2019 season where we had 11 guys be NFL players, but these guys are so skilled and so athletic. It is the big question mark on a deep line though. If these DTs can stop that run, I think UCLA is gonna have a hard time. But that's the big question mark. You got a lot of youth down there, at least a lot of inexperience. Some other guys, a lot of inexperience.
Yeah, I think I really feel as good about Utah's linebackers and DBs as I have for, almost any team that Utah's had recently defensively. Just like Ethan's echoed, it is that defensive line. We've heard great things, but, we've heard great things about a lot of guys in fall camp. Who do you not hear great things about, right?
Yeah.
I just want to see it. And I think there's a good chance we do see it. I'm not down on them. I just want to see it. It excites me.
Well, so it's that one question mark on the defense. So you're going to focus on that because we're so solidified, at least on paper, with every other spot. It's focus is the DT room now because we don't have that guy. I mean, there's a few people that's why can't I think of his name? Had a great game against UCF. What's his name?
Dallas Vakalahi.
Yes, thank you. I'm mixing up four different names.
Yeah.
These are not it. Dallas Vakalahi had such an amazing game against UCF. Is he that guy? Because he was awesome. But that's only thing we have.
It's so interesting too, because then you have someone like Pupu Sepulona, where he's the 2-time player of the year for basketball in Hawaii. And he's 6'2". Now he's over 300 pounds. And they're just saying he's a freak athlete. What is that going to turn into? It's just impossible to predict almost. You hear that phrase together where it's wait, he was the basketball player of the year and he's playing defensive tackle. He's not a wide receiver. He's not even a defensive end. He's at D tackle. It's a strange combo, but I feel there's a lot of potential upside there. That's something to watch.
Didn't Wick come out and say something like he's one of the most athletic defensive tackles?
Yeah, they said he was the most athletic defensive tackle they've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, the reports are that he's super fast and big and totally, moving people.
That's exciting, man.
Yeah.
I think he's gained a lot of weight too. I think he
They said he's over 300 pounds.
260. Yeah, I think he's over 300 now. Yeah.
I think he came in 262, and if he's over 300, that's interesting, man. He keep that explosiveness, keep that athleticism. that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I can just already imagine like the announcers, like, former point guard, Hawaii player of the year in basketball, now turned defensive tackle, having a dominant season. Like, it's a bit absurd.
What else you got, Landon? Anything else?
I think that's everything, honestly. We've kind of covered, I think most of the important stuff.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that there's too many variables for UCLA to really dominate Utah offensively, I think. At best, I think they're probably, scoring an average amount, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to the other side of the ball. Utah's offense versus UCLA's defense. UCLA's defense, according to their depth chart, total rebuild. Lost everyone in their front seven. Transfers at every single, defensive back spot. Last year, they were ranked, let's see, let me check here. Passing defense, they were 32 out of 68, which is, better than it looked. But yeah, really anywhere. They stopped the run decently well, but it's hard to really take much away from that because everyone has gone in the front seven for them.
Yeah, I mean, the first loss I would like to focus on for UCLA, Carson Swessinger, very clear. He was the leading tackler in the Big Ten, and he had more than the second and third tacklers combined, actually. So he was, he was the leading tackler on their defense, leader of that defense, making a lot of plays. I think replacing that is going to be very tough for UCLA this year.
It's it's so funny because like this defense is very similar to this Utah offense regarding there's so many retooled play. Every single position is hitting the transfer portal. We're hitting in the transfer portal. There's a lot of guys that the defensive tackle they lose Jay Toa. I mean, he's one of the better nose tackles in the Big Ten last year. I mean, they got a few guys that are coming in that were on the depth chart, and a few guys coming back from injury. Like, just it's not a lot of guys that's like that's a guy I want to look out for. That's a stud. Like losing your middle linebacker that as productive as that, losing every single other piece on the defense is basically that's scary. I don't know.
Yeah, I do think one person that Whittingham specifically shouted out in his interview today was number 58, Gary Smith III, who is defensive tackle. I think that's someone that he mentioned, very disruptive, very good. That's someone to watch out for on the defensive line. But yeah, like you, Landon, this is very similar to what Utah's offense is. Again, it's kind of, not weakness on weakness, but question on question. Two units that are entirely rebuilt. I think the DC honestly did a pretty good job last year with the talent he had. Can he do it again? I think the talent overall is probably like a downgrade from where they were last year. Can he, it's not like they had an elite defense last year, but can they be good? Can they be a good defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the question, especially with the secondary. It's so important to have that communication and everyone being on the same page. Like, I would probably expect, a broken coverage or two, a blown assignment. There's just so much new happening here. And if I'm a UCLA fan, maybe my number one worry is stopping the run, because that could be a tall order for them this year with losing those players on the defensive line, and especially the linebackers. The linebacker room is so critical for stopping the run and filling those gaps. It's going to be tough going up against a Utah offensive line returning all 5 starters with 2 kind of bona fide NFL draft prospects at left and right tackle, as well as the addition of Wayshawn Parker and a rushing quarterback like Devin Dampier. I think that is a major thing to look out for, because if UCLA isn't able to stop the run, it's going to be tough for the entire defense as a whole to have a good night, I think.
I mean, and then replacing every single starter in the secondary is going to be pretty difficult for them as well. I mean, I'm not sure anybody said it, but 9 and 11 starters being replaced is absurd. Absurd. I think on Pick Six Previews it said 37% of returning production. That is one of the lowest in Power 4. And it's one of those things where it's like the exact opposite of what we preach the last few years is, well, if your returning production is bad, it doesn't matter. They're leaving. They're guys that left were awesome. Like,
Yeah, that was the strength of their team last year, their run defense probably, and the whole front seven's gone.
It's a rough task to task to get and tough ask to replace every single position basically, and to get this team ready to play week one. I will say, to play a little bit of, like, they might have a chance. This Utah offense is the team to do it against. There are so many question marks.
Yeah, something that I like looking at, moving over a little bit to the Utah offense, like places where they match up well. Utah's receiver core, not a lot of experience, not a lot of returning production, pretty new. I kind of like the matchup with the DBs. Not that Utah could dominate that matchup because they're pretty much doing the exact same thing UCLA is doing with their defensive backs. But, it's not like they're going against a completely established, cornerback room or really elite safeties. I think that there is opportunity here for the receivers to kind of settle into the season in a way that they maybe couldn't do against a team with more continuity. So I do think it's interesting that we get that matchup right away, because that's something everybody's want to see. Can Dampier throw the ball? Can the receivers get separation? I think we'll find out pretty soon.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that front. Like, for those of you that watched the Kansas State Iowa State game, Avery Johnson had a pretty, average to maybe poor passing game overall, but he did connect on those deep shots on broken coverages. And that does a lot, especially for, the stats in the box score, and it helps build that chemistry with the receivers. And so I honestly think, like, probably exactly what Devin Dampier needs transitioning to Power 5 is a couple, maybe gifts a little bit from the defense, where he's able to get that confidence up, get a few touchdown passes on the resume. I think that could be, or I think this Saturday could be a really good opportunity for potentially getting a few of those, maybe one or two.
Yeah, I think that UCLA's defense is not going to have any idea. Like, you can kind of predict what they're going to do in coverage. Like, it's going to be zone or man. Like, maybe the exact personnel when it's what UCLA's bringing in is not as important. But they're just going to have no idea what to predict with our receivers. I think there are opportunities, like Landon said, for the broken plays. Honestly, I think we should be taking quite a few deep shots, because I think that'll soften up the box for the run as well. So I'm excited about that. I mean, that's something we haven't seen at Utah in a while, a truly dynamic offense. I really hope we see that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of bouncing off you about the run game. I mean, that's going to be something that I think Utah can really be successful in against UCLA. I mean, the offensive line has been raved about all offseason. Now it's time to show out and kind of show why you've been talked about over and over again. But then you have Devin Dampier, Wayshawn Parker, Corey Rogers, so many guys. It's like, hey, like, hopefully they can produce, because, like, my expectations are pretty high for these guys. Like, I think I wouldn't be surprised for a really solid running game this week. I guess this Saturday. It's an interesting thing, man. It's so weird that it's
here.
It's back. It's back.
Yeah, it feels real the closer we get.
So weird. Sorry, my camera's all jacked up. I'm like, where am I? But that's one thing. Like, Utah's notoriously been able to run on UCLA. I mean, the Joe Williams game, it comes to mind a few years back, coming to retirement and just dominating. I'm not saying we're going to have a guy go for 300 plus for rushing yards. I'm saying we're going to have a guy plus. I'm saying we're going to have a guy that's going to dominate. I mean, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Devon Dampier? Just watching some of the tape for Wayshawn for some of these scrimmages, this man does not go down. I mean, he had an interview today that he was just, his mentality is incredible, and I love just like why am I like? I'm so sorry. I'm like trying to know where I'm going. I keep on like going to the corner. It's so weird. But his mentality that he's such a dog, and it's so exciting to see. Like, hey, like, I want the Roots to succeed, but like whoever has the hot hand, but I'm gonna have that hot hand. It's like that is so like having that mentality in a running back is so perfect, and we haven't had that in Utah for years, and it is so cool. I mean, Delaney brought up in our group chats like that was Tavion Thomas. To me, it's like that goes back down to Devin Booker, bro. Like
Devontae Booker.
Devontae Booker, dude. These
Devin
names,
Booker,
I'm struggling.
believe it or not,
It
played
is late.
football at Utah. Just kidding.
It is late, but I'm so excited for this running attack. Having these guys, and then the dual threat quarterback and Devontae up here. I can't talk about him enough, but it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of Utah fans, we want to see the sexy passing game. We want to see the deep shots. We want to see the screens and slants. But I do kind of think that if Utah's able to run for like 6 yards per carry, like get ready for like tons of running. Like everyone knows Kyle Whittingham. He wants to win running the football. Like that's his preferred method of winning. Like if he could just run the football every single down and win like, 14-3, that's actually the optimal game for him. And so I think there's definitely a scenario where Dampier ends with like one touchdown pass and like 130 yards, but then we have like 330 rushing yards. And so like that offensive versus defensive line matchup is going to be something to keep your eyes on.
I think, for me, I hear run heavy, run first, and I'm like, oh, that's so antiquated because I'm used to what Ludwig does, inside zone, right up the middle every single time. And it's not like that, We may have run too much. This offense is not going to be like that. I think there are way more opportunities for explosive run. I feel like Utah has really lacked that. If you're going to be a run first team, you better be able to pick up those chunk yards. You better be able to get outside of the tackles and really get loose. Something Utah couldn't do. It's a reason why their run game wasn't good last year, even with an offensive line we think is good. I think that changes this year. Read option with Devon Dampier. I think he's going to pull a few and he's going to get, 20, 25 yards. I think Wayshawn Parker is going to break loose a couple of times. I think that even if it's a run heavy game like you think, Landon, it's going to be much more fun to watch because it's going to be dynamic. I think it'll be much different,
Well, and I think like the run heavy is going to also bring up a lot of like deep shots that the offense can take. I mean, it's going to be able to change a lot for Utah. That's nothing that we've ever seen before. I mean, the last at least 5 years for Utah is multiple deep routes that are going to have multiple options for the quarterback to read and be able to kind of play his game. And then, oh, nobody's open. I'm going to go rush for 30 yards on the scrum here. So it's like, oh, this is going to be fun to see. And I can't wait for just all the different and new schemes that Utah will have for the first time in a millennia, it feels like.
Yeah, I want to quickly cover a few guys on Utah's offense that I think a lot of people listening might not be aware of. The first being Nate Johnson. He's returned from Vanderbilt. He's not playing quarterback this year. He's playing a hybrid wide receiver / running back role that I actually think is going to be really interesting. And the second person is he's a new player, freshman, JJ Buchanan. He's going to be playing a tight end role, but it will be more of like a slot tight end. I doubt you'll see him with his hand in the ground as much. He's a really promising player that coaches have just been completely raving about him through fall camp, just saying, he's earned the right to get reps. Like, he's basically demanding to be played. He's just too good. You can't keep him off the field. So those are two players. Don't be surprised if you hear their names on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. I would love to see Nate Johnson in the Javen Jacobs role, the guy from New Mexico, kind of running back receiver hybrid. They moved him all over the field, really great chess piece for Jason Beck last year at New Mexico. I would love to see that kind of usage for Nate Johnson. I think he's big, he's fast, he's extremely dynamic. I mean, just look at some of these runs he's had, like the ones against Florida, his first appearance against Arizona where he just completely dusted guys and turned the corner. I think getting the ball in his hands is going to be really, really effective for Utah. And like Landon said, JJ Buchanan, Utah has fall camp locked down like Fort Knox. Witt doesn't like anyone saying anything, no rumors going about, nothing at all. One of the only things we've gotten is how much JJ Buchanan is dominating. And I think that, that makes him special in my opinion. Like, I think he's exactly the type of guy you would like to see emerge in the tight end room for this Jason Beck offense. Because, Jason Beck, not really a huge one to use traditional tight end. He wants their tight ends to be, more versatile than that and more of a pass option. And I think JJ Buchanan fits exactly into that mold.
Yeah, there's so much to be excited for with this guy. 4-star recruit from the last cycle. In high school, he not only played basketball and he not only played football, but he played safety, linebacker, wide receiver, and tight end for his football team. He was pretty much moved all around the field. He was a complete beast. Reports are saying he's up to 225 pounds from being, around just a bit above 200. And, Freddie Whittingham, which is the tight ends coach for Utah, he was just raving about him. All the reporters have been asking questions about JJ. They want to know what his role could look like. And he's one of the only players, Freddie Whittingham actually confirmed, saying, he's earned the right to play against UCLA specifically. He's one of the only confirmed players that's going to be actually getting reps against UCLA, at least in the tight end room. He's the only one I've heard confirmed. I just think there's so much to be excited for with him. Like Freddie Whittingham just emphasized the athleticism, the competitive drive. And he said, I don't think the lights are going to be too big for him, even though he's a freshman. So much to be excited for on that front.
Yeah, let's talk about the wide receivers a little bit. If you haven't been following Utah closely, it's pretty much a complete rebuild at wide receiver. And I do say rebuild, it's not really a retool. I mean, we're not getting guys with a ton of experience. It's kind of, who emerges here, because people haven't done it at their previous stops, really. Some of the top guys that I think we expect to be, played frequently: Tobias Merriweather, 6'5", high recruit, but has struggled with kind of injuries. Larry Simmons, speedster from Southern Miss. I think he was at Old Miss too a little bit before he transferred as well. Dadrian Zipperer, Utah fans will be familiar with him. Not a huge role the past few years. Creed Whittemore from Mississippi State, track star type guy, slot wide receiver. And then Ryan Davis coming over from New Mexico. So connection with Dampier. He's been noticed to be pretty consistent, I think, in this fall camp. I think he'll factor in. Maybe not as one of the top guys, but he'll factor in for sure. So I think that, it's kind of a mixed bag. I don't really know what to expect yet. Maybe there's someone outside of that group that really shocks us and dominates. But yeah, what do you guys think about the wide receiver room, specifically those names?
Well, I feel like with Utah, they're just throwing darts at the board and hoping few of them stick, Like you said, it's a total rebuild when it comes to these guys. None of them, I won't say none of them. Most of them have very little to any power four experience. There's a few guys that have some tape, like Tobias Merriweather. Obviously, his health always been a concern. He's probably my biggest guy. I think he's going to get the most attention, especially from a defensive side of the ball. I think it's going to be the key focus for the defense, and also I think that's the guy that Devin's going to look to get the ball too frequently. I think his frame and his. I mean, there's reports that dude runs a 4.4 at 6'5". Do I believe that? I don't know. That seems a little extreme. I don't think he'd be at Utah if that was the case, but I do think that shows his athleticism. And I think that's something that's really exciting to see. If he has that big of a catch radius, there's somebody was giving him praise in an interview where just like his size, his catch radius is just so much bigger than something we've had in a while that it's exciting to have just that weapon. And I think that's going to be a reliable guy that Devin will get to. I think he's going to be probably my at least my standout focus for the wide receiver room, at least in week one. I think getting him going is going to be key for Utah.
Yeah, I like the mix we have at receivers. It seems like we have a pretty versatile group. Like even adding Nate Johnson in there, another person that's going to be able to do those screens, maybe some slants, some shorter routes, but also has elite speed, could be a legit deep threat. You have someone like Tobias Merriweather, who's maybe more of that traditional deep threat, big, rangy receiver with good speed, good catch radius. You have your slot guy in Creed Whittemore. You have your experienced guy with Ryan Davis. You have kind of all-arounders like Zipperer and Larry Simmons. You can get yourself really excited about the upside of this room, but we just need to wait and see. We just have to wait and see. These guys are not proven. The potential's there, but you need to just wait and see. Like I've talked myself into the upside of this room so much. I just need to see it on the field.
Yep. I feel like that's most of Utah's offense outside of the offensive line, to be honest with you. 3 starters in the 3 seniors in the middle for Utah on the offensive line. the tackles on either side are first round talents by a lot of people. I think that's an advantage Utah has as well. They could push around UCLA's, green kind of front seven, I think. I think the run game, like you said, will be big here.
It's a key thing. I think Utah will be able to, especially later in the games, be able to do whatever they want with the experience we have at the offensive line. I mean, it could get dark quick if UCLA's defensive line lack of experience is prominent. And then, I mean, you can't talk about defense, Utah offense without bringing up Spencer Fonda and Caleb Flournoy specifically. I think the athleticism that they have on the at the tackle position is going to help Utah a lot in the outside game. Having someone like Devin Dampier be able the ability to scramble, be able to make plays with his legs, having these just uber athletic freaks and natures at tackle, be able to really help create those big explosive plays that we so desperately needed, like Tanner's brought up.
Okay, any final thoughts on the offensive versus defensive matchup, or should we move on to keys to the game?
It's the keys, baby.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, I'll start with mine. My key to the game is going to be first quarter score. I think that
Mine's fourth
Utah-
quarter score, so
fourth quarter score.
End of fourth quarter score.
Yeah, that's right. That's the key. Yeah. I really, in essence, what I mean by this is what team starts out hot. Who dictates from the first play. I think that the best path to a UCLA upset here is they kind of jump on Utah, and all the Utah. It's gonna be tough for Utah to scout them because everything is brand new. It's not going to be easy to know exactly what they're going to do. I really think the UCLA path here is jump on Utah quickly. Maybe Utah's passing game is not clicking, and it's tough to come from behind when you have to rely on the run heavily. And so for me, getting a hot start is key here. I think if Utah gets a hot start and they go up in the first quarter, I think the run game becomes more effective. I think it opens up everything for them. I think UCLA goes up quickly. The scramble starts there. And so I really think that in the past, Utah's been, start slow, second quarter, third quarter team. I'm not sure that's going to be the makeup of this team just because of the different offense and the different personnel we have. So that's mine.
Yeah, my key to the game is completion percentage for Devin Dampier and then yards per attempt for Nico Iamaleava. I feel like these two stats are going to be extremely telling. Like, I can't really envision a scenario where, say, Dampier has 72% completion percentage where Utah's offense isn't rolling. Like, that's really tough for me to envision because if he's completing at that high of a clip, it's keeping the box soft. The run game is probably working. They've probably had to stack the box already if he's completing at that high of a clip. And then the yards per attempt for Nico Iamaleava. I don't think Nico necessarily needs to have a high completion percentage, but if he has a really good yards per attempt, that means they were able to get some explosive plays off on Utah's secondary, which I think is the path to UCLA scoring enough points to win this game. It's getting those explosive plays off. And so if his yards per attempt, and say he doesn't even have to have outstanding total yards for the game, but just connecting on 2 or 3 deep shots that put them in scoring position could completely change the outlook of this game. So it's almost like limiting explosive plays for Utah's defense is a key, but keeping it as a quarterback stat, it's like yards per attempt or maybe explosive pass plays. So that's kind of my key to the game. Completion percentage and yards per attempt.
I think my key to the game, truthfully, is a little bit more coach focused. Is will Jason Beck have that full autonomy to call the game himself? I think this is like one of the first times that, at least in my memory, I could be completely wrong, that we've heard Kyle Whittingham himself, that his offensive coordinator has full control of the offense. Again, I could be wrong, but that's, at least in my memory, like that's something I haven't heard, at least from Whittingham specifically. I've heard it from other people that Whittingham has said this, but this is Whittingham specifically saying that Jason Beck can do what he can do to win the game. And I think that's going to really be a telling factor, at least in one. Are we going to have the same old Utah play not to lose offense? think that's what hurts us. That's something that's never successful. You got to play to win, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I think Jason Beck has that in him. I just hope Mr. Kyle Whittingham, the GOAT himself, will allow that to happen.
Awesome. Okay, let's move into predictions. So we're going to start with kind of a specific prediction for something we think will happen, either stat-wise or just something interesting about the game, and then move into our, overall picks for the game. For me, something that I was thinking about was Jason Beck likes to spread the ball around. I think that there will be 4 or more players with 50 all-purpose yards. That's between, this is not including Devin Dampier. Like, I think 4 skill position players, running backs, receivers, tight ends, will have more than 50 all-purpose yards. Whether that's catching passes or running, I think we're really going to spread the ball around here. I don't think we're going to lean on one guy because I think we just don't know who the guy to lean on yet. I don't think we know who that is yet. So I think we're going to spread it around. I think we're going to see what players can do. And yeah, that's my prediction for the game.
Yeah, I guess my specific stat prediction, I'm going to go both JJ Buchanan and Nate Johnson have a touchdown this game, which could be shocking for some people who haven't been following the program closely, because you're like, who are these guys? But I think that the fan base is going to become acquainted with them and be very happy with what they see on Saturday.
Brother Keith, you reincarnated right there.
Mm-hmm. More like, dude, Dalton Kincaid that's dunking basketballs like crazy.
Yeah.
For me, I think my take would be over 2.5 turnovers for the Utah defense, or created turnovers.
So
3 turnovers.
I think they'll have 3 plus turnovers, probably 3. To be exact. Whether that be interceptions or creating fumbles or however you want to get that.
I would love that. Yeah. Scally said that was a huge key.
I think that's a big focus. I mean, I said it time again. This defense has athletes all over the field. And I think that's what will create some hectic play from UCLA, where they'll be like, how did this guy get there? Like, he was halfway across the field type of place, which is going to be really exciting. That's one thing I think that Utah will focus on, and I think we can succeed on that, at least week 1.
Okay, let's move on into the predictions for the game. For me, I kind of see this going in a way that Utah's offense is good, but not spectacular. I think it's going to take a little bit to gel. There's just so much entirely new scheme, pretty much entirely new personnel outside of the offensive line. Road game against a Power 4 team that we don't really know what they're going to look like. Who's going to play for them? There's a lot of unknown there. I think Utah maybe starts off slow on offense in the first half, picks it up in the second half, and has a good but not incredible total. On the flip side, I think UCLA is going to really, really struggle to move the ball. I think this is going to look almost a little bit like Florida did in 2024. Where they're having a tough time running, they're having a tough time completing enough passes to really move the chains. Maybe they hit a few deep ones with their skill, but it's nothing that is like consistently moving the ball in our defense, like, moving up and down the field, like how maybe Oregon did in 2023. I don't think it'll look like that at all. So I'm going to go Utah 27, UCLA 14. I think Utah covers. I think they, go touchdown over what the line is right now. I think, like I said, I think the offense is pretty good. I think the defense is great. And I think they're going to win like a pretty comfortable game on the road.
Yeah, I've got Utah taking this one 31-17. And so kind of how I came to that number, I think Utah's offense will be able to generate 4 touchdowns this game, which leads them to 28 points. I think potentially a turnover could help with one of those. I see maybe 2 passing touchdowns, 2 running touchdowns in that. And then I think that UCLA also will probably be able to force a turnover from Utah. There's a lot of new players here, either a fumble, an interception. I could even see a pick 6, someone jumps one of those short routes, those screens, those hitches. And so I think UCLA scores one that way, good field position. I can also see them scoring with an explosive pass. Like, I don't think Nico is going to be contained the entire game. He'll hit on at least one good deep pass, I believe. And then I see them just, decent drive, get a field goal. And then I also see Utah being able to hit a field goal at some point in this game, maybe in the fourth quarter, kind of extend the lead, put it away. But yeah, 31-17, Utah victory. That's what I got. I'm pretty optimistic about the offense. I really hope it plays out that way. I'd be super satisfied.
I got two predictions. I have the homer take and I have the realistic take. I'm going to save the homer take for myself.
This is your real take. We all know this.
We can get it if we look good in week one, maybe week two, week 3, some other games I can bring this out. But realistically, I think a Utah win with 34-16. I think there's going to be a lot of bend don't break defense, especially in the second half, where Nico may be able to drive this UCLA offense down the field, but Utah defense is just too experienced and too well coached that they'll be able to hold them to field goals. And I do think Utah kind of similar situation. I feel like the offense is going to click later. I think Tanner brought it up throughout the pod where it's like the beginning is probably a little sloppy, kind of similar to that Kansas State Iowa State game that we watched in week 0. I feel like it's as the game progresses, Utah's experience on the offensive line and the dynamic run game that we could have will allow us to score some points later on the game and get some deep field goals with some hopefully some big boots from Dylan Curtis, the Utah kicker. Finally, maybe Andy Phillips, Matt Gay type of play. Some late half heroics, getting a deep field goal to get us in a good position for the rest of the game.